Hi guys, welcome back to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and today we're talking about a film that's probably going to surprise you. It's called The Invisible Raptor. Yes, you heard that right. The Invisible Raptor. You know how sometimes you just stumble upon a film that's so ridiculous in its premise that you think, there's no way this can work, but somehow it absolutely does? Well, this is one of those films. So let's break down why this comedy horror with essentially zero budget is still somehow one of the most entertaining rides I've seen this year. We've got witty dialogue, surprisingly good chemistry, and a plot that's bonkers but executed with so much passion that you can't help but love it. Let's dive in. Mike Hermosa directs this film, and the writing credits go to Nic Cage and Johnny Wicker. The plot follows an amusement park paleontologist, Dr. Grant Walker, played by Nic Cage, and a hapless security guard, played by David Shackelford as Daniel Denny Dennelson. We've also got William Willie Walsh, played by Sean Astin. Yes, that same Sean Astin, that good old Samwise Gamgee. For the few minutes he's in it, he's having a blast. But before I get really stuck into this review, let me just tell you that you should watch this movie right until the end credits. The basic premise is this: an invisible velociraptor escapes from a high-tech theme park and starts wreaking havoc on a small town. It's exactly as absurd as it sounds. And yet it works. The mix of horror comedy and sheer ridiculousness makes it impossible to look away, because what you're watching is B-movie magic. Speaking of which, when we talk about the B-movie charm, the movie doesn't have a huge budget, and it doesn't pretend to. In fact, that's part of the fun. There are these really clever tongue-in-cheek ways they deal with the invisible raptor, like footprints appearing in the dirt, claw marks on the walls, things that are being smashed and thrown around. It's a bit like The Invisible Man meets Jurassic Park, but with the budget of a student film and the heart of a cult classic. You know how sometimes you'll watch a low-budget horror and cringe at how bad the effects are? Here the filmmakers lean into it. They're self-aware in the best way possible, and they make that limitation of the budget their strength. There's a great sequence where the characters are running away or running towards fighting a balloon without doing any spoilers, and you're laughing because it's so goofy, but it also works because of the sheer commitment from the actors. And talking about that, character, chemistry, and performances, David Shackelford and Nic Cage have this bromance that's just a joy to watch. Daniel, the security guard, just wants to be a best friend and to be taken seriously, while Dr. Grant Walker is a kind of scientist who's way too serious for the insanity that's happening around him. Their dynamic is perfect. There's a lot of quick-witted banter and some genuinely funny one-liners that made me laugh out loud a few times. Also, Dr. Grant's name obviously is a callback to Jurassic Park. Every time this film needs something to be done or be created, a character will say, "Did you see that movie where they did that? We did that." It's a fantastic way to make stuff happen that works for the bit in the film because of what the film is. Then you've got Sandy Martin as Henrietta McCluskey. That's really her name. A no-nonsense local who somehow ends up entangled in the mess of this story. And Catelyn McHugh plays Amber, who's the love interest with some genuinely sweet and funny moments. The romance is a subplot though, and it's kind of light, but it's just enough to give the story a bit more heart. The script doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's where it shines. There are some absolutely stupid lines here, and yet I laughed more than I cringed. Some silly lines of dialogue are mildly funny at first, but then the actual setup comes to fruition much later on, and then it's actually funny again. This film has reason to be as good as it is, because it fits perfectly in that B-horror comedy genre that sometimes works, and when it does, it's just so much fun to watch. The dialogue here captures that B-horror genre perfectly. Now this is a comedy horror, so when we're talking about the gore, even though the raptor is invisible, there are some surprisingly brutal kills. You've got blood splatters, ripped clothes, and off-screen crunches that leave just enough to the imagination. But that's not all left to imagination. There's a lot of gore that's thrown on camera here that they're having a lot of fun. It's cheesy and over the top, but it works. There's particularly a fun scene involving a raptor attack at a party that is equal parts gruesome and hilarious. The raptor has a thing for heads. One minor issue though, the length issue. Normally, comedy horrors are an hour and a half long. This one is pushing just under 2 hours, and honestly, I did feel the time in parts of it. It needed to be trimmed. There are a few scenes that drag, and while the human ridiculousness of the film carry it for the most part, you do start to feel the length. It could have done with a tighter edit, and that might have helped a smoother ride. Is The Invisible Raptor worth watching? Absolutely. If you're a fan of B-horror, comedy horrors, or just love seeing people run around with an invisible raptor, an invisible dinosaur, this film is for you. It has heart, humor, and a lot of ridiculous fun. Sure, it's not perfect, and yes, it's a little too long, but the passion behind it is clear. And honestly, sometimes it's nice just to watch a film that doesn't take itself too seriously and lets you enjoy the ride. So I'm giving The Invisible Raptor 3.5 out of 5 Nicolas Cages.
You got one.
I'd love to hear what you think. Are you going to check out The Invisible Raptor? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, live long on Tuesday.